You ever wake up one morning with a wild idea that feels too good to ignore? That was me, standing barefoot in my backyard, coffee in hand, staring at a patch of grass the HOA called Community Standard. I called it wasted potential. The night before, I'd been scrolling through videos of homesteads, chickens clucking, fresh veggies, the kind of peaceful chaos that just screams freedom. And that's when it hit me. Why not turn my backyard into a full-blown farm? Overnight, I could already hear the HOA's collective gasp echoing across the cul-de-sac. They were obsessed with lawn height, fence color, and mailbox uniformity. But me? I was obsessed with doing something real, something alive. So I made a list. Build raised beds, install a chicken coop, set up irrigation, and maybe, just maybe, plant enough corn to make them nervous. By noon, I'd emptied my savings account on lumber, soil, and feed. My truck looked like I'd robbed a hardware store. My neighbor Rick peeked over the fence and said, "You're either starting a farm or losing your mind." I smiled. Maybe both. As the sun set, I started digging. The sound of my shovel hitting dirt was pure rebellion. Every swing felt like a punch against the HOA's endless letters about neighborhood aesthetics. The stars came out, but I didn't stop. I built until my hands blistered, until the lights from the nearby street lamps flickered off the chicken wire. By 4 a.m., my backyard was unrecognizable. A row of planter boxes lined the fence. The chicken coop stood proudly in the corner, and the smell of fresh soil hung thick in the air. I stepped back, covered in mud, and whispered, "Let's see what the HOA thinks of this." Little did I know, by morning, my backyard farm would become the talk of the entire neighborhood, and the spark that set off the wildest battle my street had ever seen. Because when the HOA president, Karen, of course, stepped outside and saw chickens wandering across the property line, she didn't just lose her temper. She declared war. And trust me, I wasn't backing down. At exactly 6:42 a.m., I heard it, the sound of fury disguised, as slippers slapping across the driveway. Karen, HOA president, neighborhood watchdog, the self-appointed queen of order. She was out early, robe flapping in the breeze, phone in hand like a weapon. I peeked through my blinds, coffee steaming in my grip. The look on her face when she saw my new farm was priceless, like she'd just witnessed a meteor hit her front yard. Her jaw dropped, eyes wide, scanning the planter boxes, the chicken coop, and the very alive chickens pecking happily at the dew-soaked grass. She froze, then started pacing, fast. I swear I could almost see the HOA violation forms materializing out of thin air. "Excuse me," she finally shouted, cupping her hands like a megaphone. "What is this supposed to be?" I stepped outside, calm and collected. "Good morning, Karen. Welcome to Rathor Farms. Fresh eggs coming soon." Her lips tightened so hard they could have cracked glass. "This is a residential area," she snapped. "Not a barnyard." "Technically," I said, flipping through my HOA rulebook, "there's no specific clause about chickens, soil beds, or tomatoes." Her eyes narrowed. "There will be after today." Behind her, Rick, my fence-sitting neighbor, tried not to laugh. "Looks like the rooster's up before the sun, huh?" Karen shot him a glare so cold he vanished back inside. Then she turned to me, phone camera already recording. "This is a violation of HOA code. 14B, you'll be receiving an official notice." I shrugged. "I'll be expecting it. Meanwhile, care for some organic kale?" That's when she lost it. She marched right up to the edge of my yard, pointing at every little thing like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "Those planters are an eyesore. That chicken coop? Unsanctioned structure. And those animals are against neighborhood decorum." One of the hens clucked loudly, like it was mocking her. Karen jumped back, scowling. "See? It's attacking me already." I bit my tongue to keep from laughing. "They're just saying hi. You should name her. Maybe Karen Jr.?" She stormed off, muttering about calling an emergency HOA meeting. The chickens followed her to the gate, pecking curiously at her slippers. By the time she reached her door, she'd already started a group chat titled Farmgate: The Neighborhood Crisis. I looked over my backyard kingdom, my little revolution, and smiled. The war had officially begun. What she didn't know was that I had plans, big ones, and a few neighbors ready to join the rebellion. By noon that same day, Karen had mobilized the entire HOA like it was a military operation. Flyers appeared on mailboxes, inboxes flooded with urgent notices, and the community group chat was burning hotter than the summer sun. The subject line read, "Emergency meeting, unapproved farm activity." I walked into the community hall that evening, dirt still under my fingernails and a smirk on my face. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and every seat was filled. Nosy neighbors, gossipers, and self-proclaimed rule experts. Karen stood at the front, clutching a clipboard like it was a royal decree. "Let's begin," she said, voice trembling with barely contained rage. Item 1. Unauthorized agricultural conversion. At Lot 47, Mr. Rathor's property. Dozens of heads turned my way. I gave them a friendly nod. You can just say farm, Karen. Saves time. She ignored me, flipping dramatically through her papers. According to Section 4 to C, lawns must remain landscaped in uniform. Condition: Mr. Rathor has introduced livestock, soil modifications, and unsightly structures without HOA approval. Unsightly? I raised an eyebrow. You mean my raised beds? They're made of cedar. That's premium stuff. A few people chuckled. Rick, sitting in the back, gave me a thumbs up. But Karen's glare could have melted concrete. We are a community of order, she continued. We cannot have chickens clucking, dirt piles forming, or farm smells drifting through our neighborhood. I stood up slowly. With all due respect, Karen, those farm smells are just nature. Something this HOA seems allergic to. A murmur spread through the room. Someone whispered, honestly, fresh eggs don't sound bad. Karen slammed her clipboard. This isn't about eggs. It's about the rules. If we allow this, she gestured toward me like I was a public menace. We'll have goats next, then tractors, then chaos. That sounds awesome, I muttered. A few of the younger neighbors laughed out loud. Karen's face turned crimson. Enough! The HOA will issue a formal cease and desist. If the farm isn't removed within 48 hours, fines will be applied. I leaned forward. Then I guess I better make those 48 hours count. The room erupted. Whispers, gasps, even a few cheers. Karen looked like she might explode. As I left the hall, Rick jogged up beside me. Dude, you realize you just declared war on the HOA, right? I grinned. No, Rick. I just planted the seeds. The next 2 days would change everything. And not just for me. The next morning, the sun rose over my backyard like it knew something big was about to happen. I stood there, coffee in one hand, shovel in the other, staring at my half-finished farm, the rebellion that had officially begun. Karen's 48-hour ultimatum was ticking, and I wasn't wasting a single second. If she wanted to see unauthorized agriculture, I was going to give her a show. First step, expansion. I hit the hardware store before sunrise, loaded my truck with soil, trellises, and enough seeds to turn my entire backyard into a mini Eden. Tomatoes, cucumbers, beans, corn, all ready to grow. I even bought some solar lights for that rustic glow. By the time I got back, Rick was waiting by the fence with a rake. Heard about the meeting, he said. Figured I'd help stick it to the HOA. Welcome to Operation Grow Strong, I said. By noon, word had spread. A few other neighbors, tired of Karen's constant policing, wandered over. Mia from next door brought a wheelbarrow. Old Mr. Davis offered compost. Even the teenagers, who usually avoided chores like the plague, showed up to help. We worked like a team of rebels on a mission. Chickens strutted proudly around us as we built new raised beds and painted old wooden signs. Locally grown. Organic zone. Farm to fence. Rick grinned. Karen's gonna lose her mind. I laughed. That's the goal. By late afternoon, my backyard was a patchwork of green and gold. The air smelled of soil and fresh hope. A light breeze rustled the new plants, almost like they were cheering us on. Then I heard it, the sound of Karen's golf cart sputtering down the street. Uh-oh, Mia muttered. Incoming. Karen screeched to a stop in front of my driveway. Sunglasses on, clipboard ready for war. She stepped out, heels clicking against the pavement. I see you've been busy, she said, scanning the backyard with visible disgust. Just cultivating community spirit, I said cheerfully. Want to help us water the basil? Her nostrils flared. You have 24 hours left, Mr. Rathor. This will be reported. Report away, I said. But you might want to tell the others, too, since half the neighborhood's now growing kale. Her eyes widened. She turned, realizing the rebellion had spread. Planters in driveways, herbs on porches, even sunflowers popping up beside mailboxes. Karen froze, speechless. Rick whispered, "Welcome to the revolution." That night, under the string lights and stars, we toasted lemonade to freedom, and to the chaos that was just beginning to bloom. By sunrise, the neighborhood felt different. You could smell the change, literally. Fresh soil, herbs, and hay mingled with the crisp morning air. But under that peace there was tension, the calm before a storm named Karen. I was tending to the chicken coop when Rick came jogging over, phone in hand. Dude, you need to see this. On the neighborhood Facebook page, or as we called it, Karen's Kingdom, she'd just posted. Attention, homeowners. A certain individual has turned our peaceful community into an agricultural circus. Expect noise, smells, and pest infestations. Emergency HOA measures are being drafted as we speak. The post had already blown up. Some people were siding with her, worried about property values. Others defended me, saying it was refreshing to see someone do something real. But the worst part? Karen wasn't just ranting online, she had a plan. That evening, I spotted her at the far end of the street, whispering to a group of HOA board members beside her golf cart. They were pointing at houses, jotting things down, handing out flyers. Rick squinted. She's recruiting soldiers. Yeah, I said. And she's about to march. Sure enough, a few hours later, an official HOA email landed in everyone's inbox. The subject line read, Notice of Community Restoration Initiative. Inside, it outlined new emergency regulations. No livestock or non-domestic animals allowed. No gardening structures visible from the street. No soil alteration exceeding 3 inches. They'd even included a new fine, $500 per day for violations. Rick whistled. 3 inches? That's insane. You can't even grow grass that shallow. I grinned. That's the point. It's not about the farm anymore. It's about control. Karen was escalating fast and she wasn't hiding it. That night, her porch light stayed on until midnight as she made phone calls, printing forms, preparing something bigger. But she wasn't the only one plotting. The neighbors who had joined me, the new farm crew, gathered in my yard. We sat around a makeshift table, candles flickering between mason jars. Mia said, We can't just roll over. She's using fear to control everyone. Rick nodded. Then we outsmart her. I leaned forward. We don't fight her rules. We adapt around them. Let's make her look ridiculous, by following every letter of the HOA code while keeping the farm alive. Everyone smiled. The rebellion had evolved. Meanwhile, across the street, Karen watched us from her window, the glow of her laptop screen reflecting off her glasses. She was ready for war, and so were we. The next morning, my kitchen table looked like a war room. Papers were everywhere, HOA bylaws, printouts, old newsletters, even handwritten notes from past meetings. Rick had brought highlighters, Mia had sticky notes, and I had coffee strong enough to keep a tractor running. If Karen wanted to fight with rules, we were going to beat her with her own rule book. Okay, I said, flipping through the thick binder of HOA regulations. We need every gray area, every loophole, every vague sentence that can work in our favor. Mia grinned. So we're basically becoming lawyers? Rebels with reading glasses, I replied. It didn't take long to find gold. Section 9B stated, Livestock are prohibited, excluding recognized domesticated pets. Rick looked up. Wait, chickens can be pets, right? I smiled slowly. They are now. We kept going. Section 12D. No permanent soil structures exceeding 3 inches. Mia pointed to it. What if we make them portable? Like movable garden boxes on wheels? I snapped my fingers. Exactly. They can't regulate what's technically mobile decor. By noon, we had a whole strategy. Redefine the chickens as emotional support animals. Put the planters on old furniture wheels. Build a collapsible greenhouse made of PVC. Pipes that could be taken down in minutes. It was pure genius, and 100% within the rules. That afternoon, the farm crew went to work. Rick retrofitted the raised beds with caster wheels. Mia printed out support animal certificates for each chicken, complete with names, Henrietta, Nugget, and Beaker. I assembled the greenhouse like it was a spy gadget. It folded flat in under 5 minutes. By sunset, everything looked the same as before. But technically, legally perfectly compliant. The next morning, right on schedule, Karen showed up with her inspection team, clipboard ready, sunglasses low, lips pursed like she'd smelled manure, which, to be fair, she probably had. Mr. Rathor, she began, I'm here to verify the removal of all violations. I gestured proudly. Of course, go ahead and inspect. Her eyes darted from one wheeled planter to the next. Why are these garden beds movable? They're decor. Adds flexibility. She frowned. And those chickens, registered emotional support animals, I said, handing her the laminated forms. Helps with stress. You should try it. For the first time ever, Karen didn't have an immediate comeback. She just stood there, stunned, realizing every rule she'd written had turned against her. Rick whispered behind me. Checkmate. Karen's jaw tightened. This isn't over. She stormed off fuming. And that's when I knew. We just won round 1. But she wasn't done fighting. She was about to raise the stakes. Way higher. For 2 glorious days, peace returned to the neighborhood. The chickens clucked happily. The tomato plants began to flower. And I almost started to believe Karen had given up. Almost, because on the 3rd morning, I heard a sound that didn't belong. A faint mechanical buzz slicing through the still air. I looked up and saw it. A small drone hovering right above my backyard. It dipped low, spinning its camera toward the coop, then zipped over my garden beds, recording everything. Are you kidding me? I muttered, waving my shovel at it. The drone jerked sideways, like it was mocking me, before hovering right in front of my face. Rick leaned over the fence, squinting. That thing yours? Nope. Pretty sure it's Karen's new toy. Sure enough, moments later, I spotted her on her back porch, phone in hand. eyes locked on the drone feed. Her smirk said it all. The next day, I got an email from the HOA. Subject: visual documentation of ongoing violations. Please be advised that drone footage has revealed potential non-compliance with community standards. She'd gone full surveillance state. That's when I decided to fight fire with fertilizer. I spent the afternoon plotting with Rick and Mia. We're not just going to stop the drone, I said. We're going to make it regret ever flying here. The next morning, we staged the ultimate distraction. Mia set up a massive scarecrow dressed in overalls and sunglasses, holding a sign that read, "Smile for the HOA." Rick wired a garden sprinkler to motion sensors so that, whenever the drone flew too close, it triggered a perfectly aimed water blast. And me? I placed a cardboard cutout of myself right by the chicken coop, holding a fake rulebook, just to confuse her feed. When the drone appeared again, it circled suspiciously, scanning for evidence. The moment it dipped near the coop, shh! The sprinkler fired like a sniper shot. The drone wobbled, panicked, and bolted backward. Karen's scream echoed faintly from across the street. We laughed so hard we almost fell over. But later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the houses, the laughter faded. Because parked outside my driveway was Karen's car, and she wasn't alone. 2 men in suits were standing beside her, briefcases in hand. Rick whispered, "Oh boy, she's bringing in reinforcements." Karen smiled like a villain in a courtroom drama. "Meet my legal advisors," she said. "They'll help clarify your agricultural confusion." It was official. The HOA was lawyering up, and I was about to dig in deeper than ever. They arrived on a Tuesday. 2 sharp-suited men who stepped out of Karen's car like they owned the cul-de-sac. Their shoes clicked on the pavement, briefcases in hand. Karen introduced them. "These are our legal advisors," she announced. "They'll help enforce community standards." One lawyer scanned the movable beds, the chicken coop, the collapsed greenhouse. The taller lawyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Rathor, we're here to discuss a formal resolution. The HOA has the right to maintain property aesthetics and to fine non-compliant homeowners." I nodded, happy to discuss. The farm crew circled nearby. Neighbors peeked over fences. The air felt like a packed small-town courtroom. They presented a stack of documents, notices, photographs, and a draft resolution proposing fines and a timetable for removal. The shorter lawyer smiled thinly. "If you fail to comply, penalties will be assessed daily." He tapped his pen. I flipped through the papers, then pointed to a clause they'd overlooked: a homeowner protection rule requiring a written 30-day remediation notice before fines. "Where is the 30-day written notice?" I asked calmly. "We received an email and an ultimatum. Not the formal notice required under your bylaws." The taller lawyer's jaw tightened. "That notice was issued in good faith, but we can resolve this without litigation if you agree to modify some of your installations." "Modify how?" I asked. "Remove visible structures, relocate livestock off property, and restore lawn uniformity," he recited. I glanced at my friends. "Or," I replied, "we continue with what's legal now. Mobile beds, certified support animals, and community gardening." Karen's face flushed. "This is about property values," she insisted. Mr. Phone glanced up. "We can draft a settlement that includes limited hours for farm activities and restrictions on odor and noise." That sounded like compromise with a leash. I wanted the farm to thrive, not be strangled by micro-regulations. "So we mediate," I proposed. "Form a committee of residents, not just the board, to craft balanced guidelines." The taller lawyer scribbled notes. "We'll present this to the HOA board," he said, "but we will insist on enforcement mechanisms." As they packed, Karen hissed, "You'll regret this." Her tone promised a long fight, but now it sounded tired. That evening, neighbors lingered longer than usual. Mrs. Alvarez, from 2 doors down, brought lemonade and legal pads filled with suggestions. Teenagers offered to build stealthy covers for the coop. Even conservative, Mr. Patel suggested a community open house to showcase the farm's benefits. We planned, laughed, and mapped next steps, not as saboteurs but as stewards. The fight felt purposeful and strangely hopeful. When they left, neighbors applauded softly. We hadn't won, but we'd bought time. The lawyers had underestimated our resolve, and the fact that a backyard farm was becoming a movement. For a few days, everything went quiet. Too quiet. No emails, no warnings, no Karen. Even the HOA lawyers disappeared from sight. It felt suspicious, like the calm before a thunderstorm. Rick said it best while helping me feed the chickens one evening. "She's planning something. When Karen goes silent, it's not peace, it's plotting." I had the same gut feeling. So that night, I decided to stay up and keep watch. By 11:45 p.m., the neighborhood was asleep. The only sounds were the crickets, the soft rustle of leaves, and the distant hum of a streetlight. I sat on my back porch, a flashlight in one hand, coffee in the other, eyes scanning for movement. Mia texted me, "You sure this isn't just paranoia?" I replied, "With Karen?" "It's called preparation." Around midnight, I heard it, faint footsteps on gravel. Then the creak of my side gate. My pulse jumped. I slipped quietly into the shadows of the garden. The moonlight glowed faintly off the chicken wire, and then I saw her, Karen, dressed in black yoga pants and a hoodie, flashlight in hand, tiptoeing through my backyard like she was in a spy movie. She had a camera around her neck and a notepad tucked under her arm. "Unbelievable," I whispered. Rick's motion sensor light suddenly clicked on. Karen froze like a deer in headlights, caught mid-step beside the compost bin. "Evening, Karen," I said loudly. "You doing some late-night gardening?" She shrieked and nearly dropped her camera. I was investigating possible violations," she sputtered. "Violations? Or trespassing?" I asked, crossing my arms. "Because one of those is illegal." She tried to regain her composure. "The board gave me authority to collect photographic evidence." "Funny," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'll collect some evidence too, for the police." Rick appeared over the fence in his pajamas, holding a flashlight. "What's going on?" "Karen decided to break into my farm," I said. "Guess she wanted a tour." Karen stammered, I was just verifying compliance." Rick grinned. "At midnight?" She turned beet red and bolted for the gate, mumbling something about documentation protocols. I watched her go, shaking my head. She's officially lost it. The next morning, she tried to spin the story online, claiming she was checking for potential animal cruelty. But the neighbors weren't buying it, especially after Rick posted a video, clip from his security cam of her, sneaking around. The comment section exploded. Karen's credibility? Gone. But I knew her pride wouldn't let her stop there. She'd been humiliated, and humiliation breeds desperation. The HOA war was about to reach a whole new level. The fallout from Midnight Karen went viral in our neighborhood group chat. Rick's security footage spread like wildfire, and within hours, the comment section was roasting her harder than a summer barbecue. But humiliation only fueled her determination. By the end of the week, she struck back, this time with reinforcements. It started on a Saturday morning. The sound of multiple car doors slamming snapped me awake. When I stepped outside, there they were. Karen, 3 HOA board members, and 2 uniformed property compliance officers, wearing orange vests that looked way too official for a suburban street. Rick leaned over the fence and muttered, "Looks like the cavalry's here." Karen stood proudly at the front, clipboard raised like a general before battle. "Good morning, Mr. Rathor. We're conducting a full community inspection today." I crossed my arms. "On a weekend? Without notice?" "This is an emergency review," she said coldly. "We're assessing ongoing violations of community standards, including your agricultural experiments." I smiled. "Well, welcome to Rathor Farms. Please, don't step on the kale." They fanned out across my yard like investigators at a crime scene, measuring planter heights, photographing soil, even counting the chickens. One of the officers held up a ruler and frowned. "This bed looks more than 3 inches deep." "It's 4, I said cheerfully. "But since it's on wheels, it's considered portable decor under Section 12D. The man blinked. "He's technically right," he admitted. Karen's nostrils flared. "Check the greenhouse!" They turned toward my collapsible greenhouse. I popped it open with a click, then folded it down again in 3 seconds flat. "Temporary structure," I said, "demonstrably non-permanent." The officers exchanged looks. One whispered, "This guy did his homework." Karen stomped toward the chicken coop next. "And what about these creatures?" I pulled out laminated cards. "Certified emotional support animals, registered for stress relief." Rick snorted behind the fence. "They relieve my stress just fine." Karen's face was turning a dangerous shade of red. She scribbled furiously on her clipboard, muttering about amending regulations and pursuing further action. Finally, the lead officer turned to her. "Ma'am, as of now, we can't cite any technical violations." Karen froze. "What?" He shrugged. "Everything here falls within the current HOA guidelines, though it's creative." Rick grinned. "Creative's another word for genius." Karen glared at me. "Enjoy your little farm, Mr. Rathor. But this isn't over." As they marched away, I couldn't help but laugh. The farm stood victorious, again. But that evening, a certified letter landed in my mailbox. The envelope bore the HOA seal, and the subject line read, "Notice of Special Hearing, Potential Rule Amendments." Karen was rewriting the law itself. The envelope sat on my kitchen table like a ticking bomb. I tore it open and scanned the first few lines. "Notice of Special Hearing. Proposal to amend HOA regulations. New clauses addressing non-traditional property usage, animal disturbances, and visual uniformity compliance." Translation: Karen was rewriting the rules to target me. I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. She couldn't beat the farm under the law, so now she's changing the law. Rick looked over the letter. She's going nuclear. Mia frowned. If these amendments pass, they could ban everything you've built, even the chickens. I nodded slowly. Then we make sure they don't pass. The HOA was holding the special hearing in 3 days, open to all residents. That gave us 72 hours to turn the tide of public opinion. So, Operation Save the Farm was born. We went door to door, explaining how the HOA's new rules wouldn't just affect me. They'd affect everyone. Karen's language was so broad it could ban vegetable gardens, bird feeders, even potted plants visible from the street. Mrs. Alvarez gasped when she read the draft. She's out of her mind! I've had my rose bushes for 15 years. Exactly, I said. If these rules pass, they're next. By the second day, word spread fast. Neighbors who'd once been neutral were suddenly fired up. The same people who'd once scowled at my chickens were now asking for tomato seeds. The HOA didn't realize it yet, but Karen had gone too far, and the community was turning against her. On the night of the hearing, the community hall was packed. Every seat taken, people standing along the walls. Karen sat at the front, gavel in hand, looking smug but strained. Her stack of rule proposals sat beside her like a weapon. "Let's begin," she said, voice clipped. "These amendments are designed to protect property values and community harmony." I raised my hand. "Or to control what people do with their own yards." The crowd murmured in agreement. Karen tried to push through her agenda. But every time she mentioned property uniformity, someone objected. Rick pointed out how the HOA fees had doubled under her leadership. Mia asked why residents weren't given advance copies of the rule changes. Karen's composure started to crack. Then Mrs. Alvarez stood up, her voice trembling but fierce. "You don't protect our community, Karen. You bully it." The room erupted in applause. For the first time, Karen looked rattled. The vote was postponed, delayed due to insufficient consensus. We'd stopped the rule rewrite for now, but Karen wasn't done scheming. That night, as we celebrated in my backyard, Rick noticed her porch lights still burning. She was on her laptop typing furiously. "Round two's coming," he muttered. And he was right. The next morning, my mailbox was stuffed. Not with junk mail, not with flyers, but with envelopes. Dozens of them. Each one stamped with the HOA's logo like a declaration of war. Rick jogged over, coffee in hand. "Whoa. You getting fan mail now?" I ripped open the first one, then the second, then the third. My stomach sank. Each envelope was a separate violation notice. Improper fencing, unauthorized soil alteration, non-compliant structural element, obstructive vegetation growth. She had hit me with 23 citations in one day. Rick whistled. "That's not enforcement. That's harassment." I held up a letter. "Look at this." She cited my wheelbarrow as an unapproved accessory structure. Mia arrived a few minutes later, reading one over my shoulder. "Karen must have stayed up all night writing these." "Oh, she did," I said. "And she hand-delivered half of them herself. That's why her porch lights were still on. But it wasn't just me." By noon, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. Mrs. Alvarez got cited for her bird bath. The Jenkins family got fined for visible potted plants. Even Rick got a warning for temporary fence decor. His garden gnome. Karen had unleashed a citation storm. "She's punishing everyone who sided with you," Mia said. "She's trying to turn them against you." I shook my head. "Then we show them who the real problem is." We started compiling every citation we could find. Neighbors came over one by one, dropping off letters, laughing and fuming at the same time. We laid them all out on my picnic table. A ridiculous collage of bureaucratic nonsense. Rick snapped a photo. "You know what this looks like?" "Evidence." "Exactly," I said. "Let's go public." That night, we launched the HOA Files, a simple Facebook page documenting every absurd citation in the neighborhood. People started uploading their letters, sharing their stories, and tagging the HOA. Within hours, it had hundreds of views. By morning, thousands. The next day, even local residents from other neighborhoods joined in, sharing their own HOA horror stories. Karen's name became a meme. Someone even edited a photo of her holding a ruler like a sword with the caption, "The Queen of Compliance." By the afternoon, she was fuming. I saw her marching across her yard, phone pressed to her ear, probably calling the HOA board or, worse, her lawyer army. Rick grinned. "She's losing control." I nodded. "Yeah, but cornered people make desperate moves." That night, as the neighborhood laughed online, Karen filed an official cease and desist against me, claiming I'd defamed the HOA. The digital war had just begun. By sunrise, the HOA files had gone viral. Thousands of comments, shares, and reactions poured in overnight. People from all over the country were chiming in, sharing photos of their own HOA nightmares, cheering us on, and mocking Karen's endless crusade. But while the internet was laughing, Karen was plotting. I woke up to another certified letter taped to my door. It read, "Cease and desist order. You are hereby instructed to remove all defamatory online content targeting the HOA or its representatives, or face legal consequences." I handed it to Rick. He burst out laughing. "She thinks she can sue the internet? She doesn't realize the internet already took sides," I said. Still, I knew Karen wouldn't stop with paper threats. So, I decided to take control of the narrative, publicly. That evening, I went live on Facebook. The thumbnail read, "The Truth About Our HOA War." Within minutes, hundreds joined. I stood in my backyard, camera steady, chickens pecking in the background. "Hey everyone," I began. "You've all seen the posts, the citations, the late-night inspections. But this isn't just about me. It's about every homeowner tired of being bullied for living their life." I held up one of Karen's citations. "This? Unauthorized soil alteration. Translation: I planted lettuce. Apparently, lettuce is a threat to property values." The comments section exploded with laughing emojis and messages of support. Rick chimed in from behind the camera. "Don't forget the gnome fine!" "Right," I said. "This little guy," I held up Rick's garden gnome, "was deemed a decorative obstruction." People were cracking up, but beneath the humor, a movement was growing. Viewers started donating to cover potential legal costs, offering advice, even volunteering to show up at HOA meetings. Then, halfway through the stream, Karen struck back. The HOA page went live at the exact same time. Her caption read, "Setting the record straight. Protecting our community from misinformation." Split-screen chaos erupted as viewers jumped between both streams. Karen stood behind a podium in her spotless living room, reading from a printed statement. "This campaign of ridicule," she said, "has tarnished the reputation of our neighborhood and caused emotional distress to HOA leadership." Rick whispered, "She sounds like she's on trial." I smiled at the camera. "We're not the ones making late-night trespassing videos, Karen. We're just planting vegetables." The live chat exploded. Karen's stream got flooded with laughing comments, and she shut it down within minutes. When I ended mine, the video had 80,000 views and counting. Karen wanted silence. Instead, she got spotlighted, but the fame came with a cost. The next morning, a new sign appeared at the entrance of our neighborhood. "Private community, no filming or media allowed." She was tightening control, and I was just getting started. When I saw that new sign, "Private community, no filming or media allowed," I couldn't help but laugh. It was pure Karen logic. When you can't control the story, try to ban it. Rick rolled up on his ATV, squinting at the sign. "She really thinks a $40 Home Depot sign can stop social media?" I smirked. "Let's find out." Within an hour, I snapped a photo of it and posted it on the HOA files with the caption, "Update. We're apparently living in North Korea now." The post blew up instantly. Memes, comments, parodies. People were photoshopping Karen's face onto dictator posters. The hashtag #YumLettuceFarm started trending locally. But while the internet laughed, the tension in our neighborhood turned serious. Karen started patrolling again, clipboard in hand, snapping pictures of anyone holding a phone. She even tried confronting Mia while she was filming a harmless chicken-feeding clip. Mia stood her ground. "You can't stop me from recording on my own property, Karen." Karen sneered. "Community rules supersede personal property rights." Rick muttered, "Pretty sure that's not how the Constitution works." Word spread fast that Karen was on a recording crackdown. Neighbors began live-streaming her confrontations. Before she could even complain, one video showed her tripping over a sprinkler hose while yelling about privacy violations. It went viral. That clip alone got 500,000 views in a day. The backlash was immediate. News outlets caught wind of the drama and reached out. Local reporters wanted to do a segment on the backyard farm versus the HOA. Karen, of course, panicked. She sent out a community-wide notice. "Any resident found speaking to the media without HOA approval will face disciplinary action." That was her biggest mistake yet. By trying to silence everyone, she had turned our entire neighborhood into whistleblowers. People who had been quiet before started speaking out. They dug up receipts, literally, of Karen's misuse of HOA funds, shady landscaping contracts, and her own unapproved decorative fountain in her backyard. When that information hit social media, the comments exploded. "So she can have a fountain, but my garden's a crime?" Someone wrote. Rick looked up from his phone. "She's toast. The internet's doing the heavy lifting now." I nodded, watching the chaos unfold. "We don't even have to fight anymore. She's destroying herself." The following morning, news vans lined up along the street despite the no media signs. Reporters were interviewing neighbors, kids were waving to cameras, and even the chickens became minor celebrities. Karen stormed out of her house, screaming at the news crews. "You can't film here! You're trespassing!" One reporter calmly replied, "Ma'am, we're standing on public property." Her face turned red as the cameras rolled. It was official. The HOA's war against the farm had gone national. By noon, our quiet cul-de-sac looked like a movie set. Satellite vans, cameras, reporters in pressed suits, all gathered to cover what they were calling the Great Backyard Farm Showdown. Karen stood on her porch like a statue, arms crossed, fuming as microphones turned toward my yard. Rick leaned against the chicken coop, whispering, "Smile for the 6 o'clock news, buddy." I straightened my hat, waved at the cameras, and said, "Welcome to the farm that started a movement." The lead reporter, a sharp-tongued woman named Tara Collins, approached me first. "So tell us, how did one man's garden become the center of a national HOA controversy?" I smiled. "I guess it started when I decided lettuce shouldn't need a permit." The crew laughed and Tara grinned. "That's going to be the headline." We walked through the yard, past the rows of tomatoes, the tiny barn, and the clucking hens. While I explained how the HOA tried to shut everything down, they filmed every detail. The illegal compost bin, the non-compliant scarecrow, even the solar lights I'd installed for night chores. Meanwhile, across the street, Karen had her own audience, yelling at a cameraman for filming unauthorized angles of her house. "This is harassment!" she shrieked. The cameraman calmly replied, "Ma'am, you're in the background." Rick muttered, "Background character energy." The interview aired that evening, and it was glorious. The editors didn't hold back. They juxtaposed shots of my peaceful backyard with clips of Karen ranting about visual uniformity and agricultural anarchy. The internet loved it. Memes flooded in. Someone even auto-tuned her saying, "This is harassment," into a remix track that hit 1 million views. The hashtag Farm Freedom started trending nationwide. Supporters sent messages from all over. Teachers, veterans, gardeners, even a few lawyers offering pro bono help. But not everyone was cheering. The HOA's central office, the one above our local chapter, finally took notice. The next morning, I got a letter from their legal department, effective immediately. All public statements, media appearances, and social media content involving the HOA must be approved by corporate counsel. Rick chuckled. "They're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube." "Too late," I said, scanning the letter. "The story's bigger than them now." And that was true, because just as I finished reading, my phone buzzed. It was Tara, the reporter. "You might want to check tomorrow's morning segment," she said. "We're airing an exclusive follow-up." And this time, Karen agreed to an interview. I froze. "Karen, on live TV?" Rick grinned. "Oh, this is going to be beautifully bad." The next morning, the entire neighborhood was awake before sunrise. Phones in hand, everyone tuned in to the morning news. Tara Collins had teased it perfectly. Exclusive interview. The woman behind the HOA. Controversy finally breaks her silence. Rick handed me a mug of coffee, grinning. "Brace yourself. This is going to be breakfast entertainment." The segment opened with upbeat music, then cut to Karen sitting stiffly. In front of her, perfect living room backdrop. Her posture screamed control, but her eyes, they twitched with exhaustion. Tara smiled professionally. "So, Mrs. Kensington, tell us, what's really going on in your neighborhood?" Karen adjusted her pearls, took a deep breath, and began. "This isn't about farming or freedom. This is about order. Our community has rules for a reason. We can't just let people turn their yards into barnyards." The clip cut to footage of my hens pecking calmly beside my flower beds. Serene, almost cinematic. The contrast was priceless. Tara asked, "But isn't the community supposed to vote on rule changes?" Karen blinked. "Well, yes, and didn't your proposal to change those rules get postponed due to lack of support?" Karen's jaw clenched. "It was postponed due to disruption by a few vocal troublemakers." Tara smiled. "Including the gentleman who planted tomatoes?" Karen exhaled sharply. "It's not about tomatoes. It's about the principle." At that exact moment, the station split-screened, her rant next to a clip of me waving at the camera with a basket of fresh produce. The internet had a field day. Within minutes, hashtags like Chalker Tomato Principle and the Karen Vias the Farm started trending. Rick was doubled over laughing. "She just gave your farm the best PR campaign in the country." But the meltdown wasn't over. Halfway through the segment, Tara pressed again. "There are claims you issued over 20 citations in one day. Was that appropriate?" Karen's face turned red. "Those were necessary. People were mocking me online, posting pictures, turning me into some kind of villain." Tara leaned in. "So, this is personal?" Karen froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The silence was damning. The broadcast ended with a closing shot of my backyard. Sunlight glinting off the chicken coop. Tara narrating, What began as a backyard project has become a national conversation about community, freedom, and one man's right to grow his own food. When it was over, the neighborhood erupted in cheers. Even people who'd stayed neutral started clapping from their porches. Rick raised his coffee mug. To the queen of control, dethroned by a tomato. I laughed. You think she'll calm down now? Rick shook his head. No way, she's cornered. She's gonna double down. And sure enough, before sundown, a new notice appeared on every door in the community. Emergency HOA meeting. Mandatory attendance. Karen was planning something big. The HOA clubhouse had never been that full. Every chair was taken, every wall lined with people, all buzzing with tension. The air smelled like fresh coffee, anxiety, and rebellion. At the front of the room stood Karen, gavel in hand, lips pressed so tight they looked drawn on. Beside her sat two men in suits, clearly lawyers. This wasn't just another HOA meeting, it was an ambush. Rick leaned toward me. She brought backup. This can't be good. Karen slammed the gavel. Order! Order! Her voice cracked slightly under the murmurs. This emergency session has been called to address multiple violations, insubordination, and actions that have brought disrepute to this community. The crowd murmured louder. Someone from the back whispered, "Here we go again." Karen continued, "We are also reviewing a motion for expulsion, the permanent removal of a resident found guilty of gross noncompliance." Every head turned toward me. Rick muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." Karen smirked. "Mr. Thompson, you have repeatedly defied HOA regulations, encouraged public ridicule, and damaged property values through unauthorized agricultural activity and viral content." I stood up slowly. I planted vegetables and made people smile. That's my crime? The room rippled with laughter and applause. Karen slammed the gavel again, her voice rising. "This is not a comedy hour!" But it didn't matter. The crowd wasn't on her side anymore. One of the lawyers, a thin man with a monotone voice, began reading from a stack of papers. As per Section 9C of the Community Conduct Agreement, the board reserves the right to revoke residency privileges in cases of... I interrupted. Wait, Section 9C? That was amended last year, wasn't it? Removed after the last vote? The lawyer hesitated. Mia, sitting near the front, raised her phone. "It was," she said. "I've got the HOA meeting minutes right here. You can't use a section that doesn't exist anymore." The crowd erupted. People started shouting over one another. "He's right! That's illegal! You can't just make up rules." Karen banged the gavel until the handle cracked. "Enough!" she shouted. Rick crossed his arms. "Guess the gavel's not the only thing breaking tonight." Karen glared daggers at him. "You people don't understand. I built this community." I took a step forward. "No, Karen, the people did. You just wrote the rules." A silence fell. Her lips trembled. The lawyer whispered something to her, but she brushed him off. "This meeting is adjourned," she snapped. She stormed out, leaving her lawyers scrambling to collect papers. The crowd exploded in cheers. Someone even started chanting, "Let us farm! Let us farm!" Rick clapped me on the back. "You just turned an ambush into a rebellion." But I wasn't celebrating yet, because as I looked toward Karen's house through the clubhouse window, I saw her phone glowing and her face twisting in fury. She was calling someone. Someone important. 2 mornings later, a white government SUV rolled into the neighborhood. The logo on the door read, State Department of Environmental Compliance. Out stepped a tall man in a windbreaker, clipboard in hand, the kind of guy who looked like he took soil samples for fun. He introduced himself briskly. "I'm Inspector Mills. We received multiple complaints regarding unregulated agricultural activity within a residential zone." Karen appeared out of nowhere, beaming like she'd summoned him herself. "Yes, thank goodness you're here. This entire property is a hazard. Unlicensed livestock, soil contamination, you name it." Mills glanced at me. "You're the owner?" I nodded, calm but wary. "Sure am. You're welcome to take a look." Karen folded her arms, smirking. "You'll see for yourself." The inspector stepped into the backyard. He walked slowly, taking notes, testing the soil, glancing at the coop. My chickens clucked curiously at his shiny boots. Rick trailed behind, whispering jokes like, "Careful, sir. That tomato's pretty aggressive." Mills ignored him, kneeling beside a planter. Well maintained. Proper drainage. No runoff." He moved to the compost bin, lifting the lid. "Smells earthy, not sour. That's a good sign." Karen's smile faltered. "What about the chickens?" "They're livestock." Mills straightened. "Technically, these are classified as domestic poultry, not commercial livestock. They're within local limits." Karen blinked. "Local limits? But this is a residential zone." "Correct," he replied, flipping through his papers. "And under Municipal Code 17B, residents may keep up to 6 hens for personal use. You're within compliance." Rick let out a low whistle. "Oof, that's gotta hurt," Karen stammered. But what about property values? The smell? Mills cut her off politely. There's no measurable odor, no violations of zoning or sanitation standards. And your complaint regarding agricultural noise doesn't meet decibel thresholds. Karen's face went pale. He signed his form, tore off a copy, and handed it to me. Mr. Thompson, you're in full compliance. Good work keeping this so organized. Frankly, I wish more homeowners cared this much about sustainability. Rick grinned. You hear that, Karen? You're getting beat by sustainability. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. The inspector tipped his cap and left. Neighbors who had been watching from their porches started clapping. Someone shouted, "He state approved," and laughter echoed down the street. Karen stormed back toward her house, muttering under her breath. I caught one line. If the law won't stop him, maybe the board will. Rick frowned. She's up to something again. I nodded slowly. Yeah, she's not done. She's regrouping. And sure enough, by nightfall, a new HOA memo went out to every mailbox. Urgent board election announcement. New leadership vote next week. Karen wasn't fighting the farm anymore. She was fighting for control. Karen's urgent election announcement hit the neighborhood like a thunderclap. The memo read, effective immediately. A special election will be held to determine new leadership of the Homeowners Association. Candidates must apply within 48 hours. Translation? Karen was trying to rewrite history, again, and cement her power before her credibility collapsed completely. Rick skimmed the letter, shaking his head. She's cornered. This is her last play. I smiled. Then let's give her some competition. Within an hour, Mia had printed flyers. Vote for change, vote for Jake Thompson. Your neighbor, not a dictator. We didn't even need to campaign hard. The neighborhood had already chosen sides. People still remembered the endless citations, the gavel tantrums, the camera bans. Karen had become the face of control. I was just the guy who wanted to grow lettuce. Still, Karen came out swinging. She plastered her own flyers everywhere, with words like restore order and protect our community's integrity. Her smiling photo was so over-edited, it looked like a stock image. She even held a meet the candidate barbecue in her backyard. But barely 10 people showed up, most of them bored loyalists. Meanwhile, my backyard farm party drew half the neighborhood. Kids fed the chickens, people laughed, ate homemade salsa from my tomatoes, and Rick grilled corn like a champion. Feels less like politics, more like a festival, Mia said. That's the point, I replied. People don't want control. They want community. When election night arrived, the clubhouse was packed. This time there was no tension, just anticipation. Karen sat up front, posture stiff, gavel in hand one last time. She tried to sound confident. We will now proceed with nominations. As acting chairwoman, Actually, interrupted Mrs. Alvarez from the front row. You're a candidate, not the chair tonight. Conflict of interest. The room erupted in applause. Karen's face went scarlet. Ballots were passed out. The room buzzed with whispers and quiet laughter. 10 minutes later, votes were collected and counted. When the secretary cleared her throat to announce the results, the silence was electric. For HOA president, Jake Thompson, 73 votes. Karen Kensington, 12 votes. The room exploded. People stood, clapping, cheering, chanting my name. Rick jumped up, fist in the air. The farm wins! Karen sat frozen, eyes wide, gripping the broken gavel she'd tried to tape back together. For once, she said nothing. I stepped forward, calm and smiling. This isn't a win against anyone. It's a win for everyone. Let's rebuild this community together. But as I looked toward her empty chair moments later, Karen was already gone. Mia noticed first. She left before the results were even finalized. Rick frowned. You think she's done? I glanced out the clubhouse window. Her house was dark, but her car was gone. No, I said quietly. Karen's never done. For 2 full days after the election, the neighborhood felt peaceful. No memos, no citations, no gavel echoes through the cul-de-sac. People waved when they passed by. Kids played near the coop. And for once, the air felt light. But Rick wasn't buying it. It's too quiet, he muttered, sipping his coffee. Karen quiet is plotting quiet. He was right. That third night, around 11 p.m., I heard the rumble of an engine. Headlights cut across my backyard. I stepped onto the porch and froze. Karen's SUV was idling near my fence, tailgate open. She was pulling out plastic crates, the kind used to move small animals. Rick ran over, barefoot. Is she trying to steal your chickens? I grabbed my phone, hit record, and walked toward her. Karen, what are you doing? She spun around, startled. Her face was wild, mascara streaked, hair undone. These animals are a health violation. You've broken the law for months and no one will stop you. Karen, I said calmly, you lost the vote. The farm's legal. You need to go home. But she wasn't listening. She yanked open the coop door, and my hens scattered in panic. She shouted, "You people ruined this neighborhood!" That's when the porch lights across the street flicked on. One by one, more lights followed. Neighbors started coming out, phones in hand, cameras rolling. The entire street began to gather, silent but watching. Karen froze as the realization hit her. Everyone was seeing her unmasked. Mrs. Alvarez shouted from her lawn, "You call us disruptive? Look at you!" Karen's hand trembled. She dropped the crate. One chicken hopped inside it, clucking indignantly, and the crowd laughed. It broke her. She screamed, "You'll all regret this!" and stormed toward her SUV, only to trip over Rick's garden hose and fall to her knees. The laughter got louder. Even the chickens joined in with perfectly timed squawks. Rick whispered, "Poetic justice." Karen got up, trembling with rage. "You'll see. You'll all see." She jumped into her car, tires screeching as she sped away. It was the last time anyone saw her in the neighborhood. By morning, her house sat dark and empty. A moving truck arrived 2 days later. No farewell note, no apology, just silence. Weeks passed and life returned to normal, or better. The HOA was reformed with real transparency. We planted a community garden where her manicured flower beds used to be. Kids helped harvest veggies. Neighbors swapped recipes. And Rick finally named his gnome Freedom. As I watered the lettuce one evening, I looked around at what we'd built. The air was calm, the lights golden. Karen had tried to control everything, but in the end, she'd grown the one thing she never meant to. A stronger community. Rick clapped me on the shoulder. "So, what's next?" I smiled. "Maybe bees." He groaned. "Here we go again." And just like that, the backyard that started, a war became the farm that united a neighborhood.